All right, this is the jpeg2RAW show, number 47. It's July 17th, and tonight we have our special guest, Michele Anderson from PinkleToes. And if you're looking around, you see only me and Michele. You don't see Tim or Kathleen. Kathleen is traveling, and Kathleen is a huge fan of Michele's and actually was the original contact of Michele's. And then as she's planning her vacation, she gave me her dates, and I said, you do know that July 17th is Michele Anderson. And she said, oh, my God. And then, well, she's at somewhere where she has no internet. So she was going to try any way she could to come on tonight. She's just not able to make it tonight. So sorry about that, Michele. She will definitely send you an email or something later, and she'll watch the show later. But fortunately, Kathleen said, I will send you a list of notes to help with your interview. I have all kind of questions for Michele. I'll send you a list of notes, just like that article that I'm working on for you, Mike. And so here's her list of notes. And if you're thinking maybe it's all blown out because I've overexposed it, nope, that's clean sheet of paper. So I got that from Kathleen. Thank you, Kathleen. And then last week, if you were here last week, Tim showed us his brand new baby. So he had really good news last week. We had to leave the Miami server, and now we're on the Virginia server. We'll see if that does better. Okay, so what I was talking about, and I'll have fun splicing all this together later on, is last week Tim showed us his new baby. And it was great news last week. Well, this week, Tim unfortunately has very sad news. His mother passed away last Friday. And the wake, I think, is today, sometime either today or tonight. Either way, Tim wasn't going to be able to make it tonight. And we posted it on our Facebook page, and there's quite a few people who posted their thoughts and comments to Tim, and he very much appreciates that. So our thoughts and prayers go out to Tim, and sorry for this sad time for Tim. Right at the same time, he should be celebrating the birth of his new daughter. So we hope to see Tim back next week, or whenever he can make it back. Kathleen will not be back next week. She is still on vacation. Maybe she'll send me great notes again next week. So anyway, if this is your first time to jpeg2RAW, every week we do a live free podcast, and part of the problem with doing a live one is you have issues like we had tonight every once in a while, and hopefully we overcome them very quickly. But we interview great photographers like we have tonight, Michele, each week, and we make it available live, and then also on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, about any place you can think of with a podcast catcher, you can get them from there. I use BeyondPod on one of my phones to get mine. And if you like the show, subscribe there and join we have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. You can like our page, like our group. Either one of those, and or join our group, I should say. Then we also have, you can send us questions at jpeg2RAW at podcast@jpeg2RAW.com, and we had a couple of listeners who have been sending us lists of people who they'd like to see on the show. Last week we had one of those, and they keep sending us great lists, great people. We add them to our list and then research them as we have time, and that is helping us get some really good photographers coming on the show. I mentioned this before, I'm working on the new website. If you're here tonight, you're at a site called Nav Studios, and you're probably wondering, what is that? What is Nav Studios? What is that, like November or something like that? This is August or July. And no, it originally meant Novice Studios, and it was a placeholder till we got the regular site up and running. So I'm hoping to have that site up and running, the regular jpeg2RAW. If you go there now, it just takes you here. By show number 50. And while it won't be a dramatic improvement change, it will allow us for future growth. As the show has grown, we're now just finished our first year. The show has grown from the original intention of being a show for beginner photographers and gotten a little bit more advanced. So we may be starting up a second podcast that has always stayed geared toward the beginner as we grow the podcast and grow the listeners. And we're still looking for a substitute host. We got a couple of people who are interested, so like tonight they could be helping me as I stumble through tonight. And if you're interested, go to our site. We have an article there that gives you a little more details. If you have any questions, I know Tim and Kathleen both read that and said, wow, we don't even qualify, Mike, for the conditions you put there. They're suggestions, we can talk them out. If you're interested in doing something like this, you know, send me an email and we'll talk about it. If you feel like maybe one of the two of the items are going to be a challenge, we can talk through it and see what we can do. You know, you don't have to have perfect video. Neither one of us tonight have perfect video, so it, you know, yeah. And I guess that's about it. Our Facebook group has been really growing recently, so if you're not a member of that already, going out there. Now, Michelle?
Yes.
You and I chatted for the first time last night, and I've been reading up on your page and looking at all your wonderful photos. There's so many. A photographer like you makes it difficult for me because I can't show 1,000 photos tonight. I've got to limit it somewhat, but it's very difficult to pick the few that I like and show them. So I know as I'm picking them, I'm thinking, no, I want this one, I want this one, and had to limit it. And you sent me some too. But I wanted to talk a little bit about you and how you got into photography.
Well, it's probably pretty much the same story as every woman who became a mom out there. Like I was working in marketing, and I quit my job to stay home and raise my kids. And my kids were getting a little bit past the baby stage, and I was trying to come up with something to do without having to go back into a 9-to-5 day job, because basically I would be working to pay for daycare for my kids. And so I had taken on a part-time job at a department store, working really late hours, and I was sitting there one night in the parking lot, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I can't believe I have a college degree and I am barely making minimum wage at a department store, you know, just so I can spend time with my kids. And I called my mom in tears, and I said, you know, I've got to get a job. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not happy with where I am right now. And she said, well, what do you want to do? And at that time, a friend of mine had just introduced me to Jinky art photography. This was about 6 years ago. And I said, and hi, Barb, thank you. I said, well, Mom, I want to do what she does. I think I want to be a photographer. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing or what I was getting into. I think I needed something called an SLR in order to do this. And my mom, who is usually very much the planner and very much, you know, you go to college and you come out with a stamp on your forehead that says, I am a, she said, okay, go for it.
Awesome.
And that was all I needed. That was the impetus that I needed. That was the permission that I needed to say, okay.
Just a little bit of support, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I did.
Yeah, very
Sounds
interesting.
so easy, doesn't it?
Well, you know, everybody starts somewhere. You said that you didn't even know what an SLR was, but you know, no one's born knowing an SLR is.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if you know what one is or not. It matters, you know, the practice, getting out there and doing it, and definitely, you know, your work speaks for itself. So how did the name PinkleToes come out?
Well, here's a little known fact. My original business name was Moments Photography, because that's very original.
I'm sure no one has thought of that one before.
For all the important moments in your life, because I was going to shoot weddings and things. Oh my gosh. But I wanted to have something that was a little bit catchier. So, in just thinking about things that were important to me at that time in my life, my son, when he was a little baby, he had like these cute little PinkleToes, like just these little unblemished, uncalloused, you know, they've never even touched the ground, perfect little toes, and that was sort of his nickname that we had given him. So I just decided on PinkleToes, and it stuck.
No, it's a great name. Yeah, it definitely stands out from Moments, which I'm sure every city around the country probably has something similar to that.
Yeah.
But finding a unique name is often difficult for people to come up with a unique name.
Yeah. In retrospect, you know, I kind of wonder. I mean, I boxed myself in, so I'm very glad that I found that I love family and children's photography. But like, if I ever wanted to shoot weddings, I'm not really sure if I could still, you know, say, you know, weddings by PinkleToes. Like, it just sounds kind of weird. So you have to be really, really careful when you are selecting a business name that it's not going to limit, what you can do.
Right. And I'm sure that over time you build up a brand. It's not it's more than just a name. It becomes the brand.
Yeah.
So while you could start up another name for the for a wedding business,
yeah,
now you've got to rebuild up that name.
Yeah.
So that the name is important, and you've got a lot of of people knowing the name PinkleToes. So starting up, Moments Wedding Photography,
Yeah.
it may take you a while to build that up.
Yeah.
And get that known. And Scott Green is out there in chat, and he is a wedding photographer, amongst other things. He does seniors also. So, and he's saying very true. And I just, as I look at that, I wanted to make sure, because it's only me tonight, I may miss some of your questions in chat. So if I miss them, we'll at the end of the show open it up to chat and make sure we hit some of those questions. So don't feel I'm ignoring you if we do miss them. So look at your website. I love the design of your website. It's it's easy to flow through. It's easy to, let's see if I can go to it. It's easy to find your stuff there. Did you design this yourself?
Somewhat. It's not loading properly though.
It's not?
Yeah. It looked like the banner's too big up there on the screen.
Okay, hold on.
Yes, my website is very easy and perfect and wonderful, and it's not loading properly.
It may not be your website. It may be the way I'm grabbing it. How's that look coming up?
Yeah, it's still not.
Okay, well,
don't worry about it.
We'll go off your webpage, but I still liked your webpage.
Oh, thank you.
It's very easy to go through. The photos are nice, and they're big enough to look to view. So did you design that, or did you have someone design it for you?
It's funny that you bring this up. It was a custom template that I worked on with Into the Darkroom, and I'm actually in the process. I think I am going to do a new web pretty soon.
Yeah.
So I've had this one for 3 years, and I'm kind of getting tired of it. I get bored really easily.
What is?
I may move on.
It's funny you mention that, because I do some of the same thing. It's you spend all this time designing a website, and you do that. And what my feeling, maybe you don't feel the same way, but mine is, as soon as I'm done, I'm already thinking about what I'd like to do with the next one. And so I know the next one is just around the corner.
Yeah.
And you never can set one up and just live with it for 10 years. You got to keep it fresh and keep updating it. And not just content, but the actual site itself.
Absolutely. I mean, I think about how much my business has changed in just the past year, in the past 2 years, in the past 3 years. I mean, my style has evolved. I have much different tastes. I mean, I'm not stagnant, and things change. So I'm all about keeping updated and keeping fresh, and going with the times.
And you mentioned style, and that was one of the questions I had for you. You have a good variety of photos, and let me see if I can find the ones that you sent me. And
I find it interesting. The ones that I chose are very different than the images that you had pulled up.
Yeah, I think that I am now. Wait, is that good or is that bad?
I don't know. I'm starting to
critique me. What was wrong with the ones I picked?
No, it's not that at all. It's that, I don't know, the images that have become my favorites and the ones that speak to me change. So the images that you pulled up from my website, some of them were a little bit older than these newer ones that I sent you. And I think it's interesting that the things that I love and the images that draw my attention or that mean something to me are very different. And and people get different things out of seeing my portfolio than what I would imagine, Yeah,
I want to go back to one. I think this is the set you sent me. Is this one you sent me?
Yeah.
Okay, I picked that one too. So I just put yours and put them aside, and put them in their own folder, and then I went and picked my own. So I may have some overlap here, and if you guys out in chat see overlap, sorry. But yeah, I picked this one too. And what this one struck me as is, you know people tell you to know the rules and then break them. So I'm not for sure if this one is one of those, because I don't know all the rules. But when I first looked at this, my eye went straight to the out of focus people, and what the heck? And I know on Michelle's site there's more to it than an out of focus shot, because there's going to be more there. But then, so my eyes go to the face of the guy, the baby, and then I see the kid behind it, and that to me is just it tells a story to me. That one shot tells a story of, okay, mom and dad have a new baby. I'm left out. I'm back here all by myself, and I'm not going to be getting attention anymore. And is that basically what you were trying to say there?
Well, we were trying really hard to get the little boy. Both of her boys are absolutely adorable, and I actually photographed her eldest son's newborn session too. And we were trying so hard to get the toddler to be, interactive and come be with the family and love on the baby. And he would only do it when I would put my camera away. He would only come hang out with mom and dad. He would just say, no more pictures right now. And I would have to put my camera down, and then he would come, play with us. So just oddly enough, the second that I start working with his brother by himself, with the mom and dad, and he wasn't part of the picture, then he goes back there and just makes the most adorable face behind there. And unbeknownst to him, I caught it.
Yeah. And I love it that it's black and white. I think I guess I'd have to see the color version, but now that I've seen black and white, I don't think I would like the color as much.
It was too busy. I mean, already like you had mentioned, your eye goes straight to the out of focus family as it is.
Yep.
There was a lot going on in that image, and so it had to be black and white in order to simplify it.
Yeah, what is it about black and white? Do you think it's because it brings it down to just the emotions of the photo?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. So to me, now that I looked at that photo, I always look straight at the boy, and I can almost be thinking what he's thinking. As maybe he's not thinking this, but I'm thinking that he's thinking this, that he's resenting that new baby.
Maybe a little.
Yeah. So let me get it to play again. Anyway, so we're talking about a style, and so I looked through your site, and one of the things I noticed is that there isn't like one type of shot. You have a good variety, a lot of different locations. Not all of them are the same, and we'll see that as we go through these. So do you have a style? Do you feel that you have a style? And if so, what is that?
I feel like, yeah, I have a style, but it's also one of those things where it's really hard to describe my style. Like, I can have other people tell me what they think when they see my images. What I hope people think is that my images are emotive, that they tell a story. Each one, like, they can stand alone, and I hope that it's authentic, that it's not forced, that it's not contrived. I mean, granted, there are plenty of shots that I take that are contrived, that are forced. I mean, I have to do some planning at a session. But the images that I show in my portfolio, 9 times out of 10 are the ones that happened by accident or happened for real, without being set up.
Okay. So how long are you spending at a session? The actual time on site with the client?
Repeat that again?
How much time are you spending with the client on site? So you go to do a photo shoot, and it looks like it's in all kind of different locations, outside, inside.
Yeah.
How long would you spend with a client at a photo shoot? Typically, I know it's all different, but typically.
No, I don't really want to push it past the 2-hour mark.
Okay.
I feel like I need to allow at least 2 to 3 hours for a session. Depending on how cooperative the kids are, how much fun the kids are having, it may, be shorter than that. Like, if I always want to end a session on a good note. I don't want to end it with the kids saying, "I hate this. I want to go home. I need my cookie." I want to end it where we're having a good time and things are going well. End it with a smiling shot. So if if I feel like I've gotten everything that I needed at, an hour or an hour and a half, then I'm going to call it quits, and I'm not going to try to push the subjects any further. So I would say it ranges from an hour and a half to 2.5 hours would probably be the longest that I would want to have a session. Newborn sessions sometimes can get a little bit longer, but that's typically because I tend to get a little chatty with newborn moms. You know, we're talking about, you know, life and things that are going on, and, you know, all things baby. So newborn sessions can sometimes take a little bit longer just because I talk a lot.
Okay. And now you said you know the prep work. So how much prep work do you have to do before a shoot? Like finding the location, you know, looking at this, looking at your photos, there's so many different locations, and now they're all in the Austin area.
Yeah, there's actually not that many different locations.
Well, it looks that way. You do a great job of making it look that way.
And that's probably because I get bored so easily. So I really, you know, I try not to shoot the same way at every location, and I try to force myself to see it in a different way. And my subjects make the session completely different. You know, my clients bring up their personalities and their tastes to every session. So I'm hoping that that variety comes out, you know, in the images as well. I do try to do a lot of prep work though before the session, because I feel like that's the way to set yourself up for success, and that's the way to make sure that you're meeting your clients' expectations. You know, that everything is very clear about what they want to get out of the session and what I can actually provide out of the session. So I have an online form that I ask my clients to fill out before the session, which asks questions like, you know, describe the feel that you want for the session. Are we talking, do we want something that's lifestyle and candid? Do we want something that's funky and quirky? I try to get my clients to talk as much as they're willing to about what they had in mind for their sessions.
Right.
You know, if you know somebody's got in their mind that they really want to capture the Austin vibe, then I know, okay, we need to find a spot in Austin downtown that you know captures, you know, the essence of Austin. Or if my client says, you know, I'm just really wanting something to, you know, we're getting ready to move into a new house and I want to document what our house looks like right now and how we live in this house. So my clients guide me, and I think that's how we get so much variety on the location and how the images look, is because I'm doing what my clients, you know, have set in their hearts to capture.
Okay. So you have to spend time with them then to find out what it is they want. So how much pre-show, how much time with them would you spend before a shoot, and just chatting with them?
Well, it's all online, so it's hard to measure.
Oh, okay. Just like emailing or something like that?
Yeah, we email frequently back and forth. I'm trying to get better. My schedule got so busy. I find that my sessions are most successful when I actually have a phone call with my clients before the session, just to sort of iron out any last-minute details and, you know, put out any fires, you know, that might need to be put out. So I'm trying really hard to get better about making that phone call, like, you know, a couple of days before the session to touch base. My schedule hasn't always allowed that. It's not easy to make a phone call in a house with 3 kids. So I try to pretend that I'm not actually a work-at-home mom and maintain a professional presence at all times. So I'm working on that.
Okay. And guys out in chat, I know I'm missing a few of your questions because it's only me tonight. I will come back at the end of the show, and we'll leave it open for there. Keep going if you want, but you know I may miss a few, and I'm not ignoring you. It's only me tonight as host, so I don't want to. I want to pay attention to you, Michelle, and not lose track of that. But you know, I'm speaking about all these different locations, and then this is actually one of my favorite shots. And you know, who knows what this could be anywhere. This could be in the kitchen of somebody's house. I love the exposure, but I love, and y'all can't see where my mouse is pointing, but I love the fact that the guy has just a tad of a smile there. It really has a lot of emotion there. Maybe it's the father in me that's seeing that you're holding a baby, your daughter or son, I don't know what that is, son or daughter, and you got just that loving smile, and that to me is a great capture. If I was that dad, or maybe the mom, I would want that. I would want that on my wall.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Thank you.
So one of the things I did see that people were asking a lot out there, and I know you don't do these right now, is workshops. And you and I
Yeah,
talked a little bit about that last night.
yeah.
And you do workshops different than anybody I've ever talked with.
They've been very different.
Yes, and I would imagine that they are, very demanding on you because of the way you do them. And for the person who's actually taken the class, I mean, it's or the workshop, it is a got to be a huge benefit to have that kind of exposure with someone like you, and worth a good bit of money if you're wanting to start your own business or improve your own style. Spending, I don't know what you charge, but let's say it's $5,000 for the workshop. you know Doing something like that is well worth it in the long run if you can get a lot out of that. So tell me a little bit about how you did do workshops. And I know you're not doing them right now. It may be something you do later, but no plans right now to bring that back up, right?
Not right now. Right now, I kind of hit it full force with workshops. And let me back up by saying, I never wanted to do workshops. Never, 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 never. I swore up and down I wouldn't do it. I had the online forum for photographers, and that was kind of how I did my workshops, quote unquote. We were discussing a lot of things online, and I got asked repeatedly over and over again, please, please, please. So I finally decided, okay, if I'm going to do this, it's going to be different than anything I've seen before. I kind of had turned into a workshop junkie prior to this, where I had, attended several different workshops and, got to meet a bunch of different phenomenal photographers and see how differently everybody runs their business. But I wanted something that was going to be very intensive, very personal, very, very one-on-one. The groups that I tend to learn best in are smaller groups where I can get more individualized attention from the person leading the workshop. So that was something that was extremely important to me in developing, my workshop curriculum, being able to have small groups. So my groups were small, and then I wanted to work in a place.
What would be small?
I would say 5 to 8 people.
Okay.
Eight's kind of pushing it. I found 7 was probably the ideal number. 5 might have been too small, just because it's nice. The great thing about the workshops is that the photographers attending it get to interact with one another too. So a group of 5 tends to be a little bit quieter. A group of 7 seems to be the right amount of interaction and one-on-one time with myself. That picture up on the screen is Chicago. I just got back. A bunch of past workshop attendees and we got together in Chicago for a reunion. And we did a little charity photo shoot and hung out for the weekend, and it was probably one of the most amazing trips I'd ever been on.
Oh wait, so I'm glad you liked what I picked, but thought I was picking workshop photos. So
no, it was kind of a workshop, but not really.
We'll do this. Let's pretend, everybody out in chat, pretend these are workshop photos, and I did pull the right ones.
No, but I think that's cool. I mean, we just a group of us just got together. Oh, that's not my workshop, by the way.
Oh, it was on your site.
It is.
Let's go back to just you and me.
That's funny. It's okay though. Anyway, the workshops were intensive, and then for most of the workshops that I did last year and the year before, or this year and the year before, everybody stayed in my home.
There's the thing that was different. That's something I had not heard before. Everybody stayed in your home, your personal home.
Yeah.
And did you cook them dinner, breakfast, and lunch?
Heck no. Well, they wouldn't want that. But my mom, Meemaw, she took good care of all of us, and she we went out to eat and we explored Austin. We experienced Austin. We stayed up late and had wine and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and shot and shot and shot and shot. So they were, I mean, understandably extremely draining, but in a good way. Like it was always sort of like this workshop hangover that I would go through, for a couple of weeks after every workshop, because I was missing the girls and I'd gotten to know these people and we'd gotten really close, and then they were all of a sudden gone. So
And what'd
it
you
was
say, 3 days?
sometimes
Did you say 3 days?
3 days.
3 days?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and imagine spending 3 days solid with people like that
Hmm.
in a fairly small group. I think you said 5 to 8. That you would get, close with some of the people there, and it
Very.
would, then you separate, and hopefully, you remain close to some of them even today, and,
Absolutely.
and do that. So that's why, that is different. I've not heard anybody do that where they bring people into their own home. Now, you have a husband and children.
Uh-huh.
They did not stay there,
They
I'd
were
imagine.
they were kicked out of the house during
Uh,
workshop time.
Kicked or left willingly?
Um, Initially kicked, and then
Okay.
we tried at one time having them stay here,
Hmm.
and it was I'm not very good at compartmentalizing. Like, well, actually, I am very good at compartmentalizing. I'm not very good at mixing those things together. So, being a mom and running the workshop was I couldn't do both roles.
Right.
So it was too much for me.
So in the workshop, and I don't want to spend too much time on that because I know you're not doing them right now, and it's not, you don't, at this stage, you don't have any plans, any date specific that you actually will start them up again.
No.
Um, but people were mentioning out here in chat, and it's you, because you had them at your home and you did such a great job with your workshops. So many people love them, and there's even a demand out in chat right now that you start them back up again. Um, so would the workshop be shooting during the day and then editing at night, or just the shooting during the day, or what would you do?
Uh, we did we did everything. We did every kind of session, major kind of session that I can think of. We did a newborn session. We did a family session. We did model time with seniors and maternity models. We did editing. We talked a lot about running your business and efficient ways to do those things. So, I mean, it covered the gamut for sure on all of these things. I do have a running email list going for people that are interested, if things change. So if they want, they can go to my PinkleToes for Photographers website and sign up there, and they'll be the first to know if anything changes
Okay.
with that.
And then would you hire? You said you had newborns, you had seniors, and you had families. Were these hired people or just people you know? You hired models?
No, they not hired, but I mean, they were letting us come into their home.
Okay.
8 strangers, not come into their house and take pictures. So it was just sort of a gift to them. Like it
Okay.
wasn't, yeah.
So you gave the family the photos.
Yes.
Okay. So they got something out of it too.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned editing. Well, let me step back a second because I think I saw somebody ask this out there: Nikon or Canon? And
Huh.
so if you're new to the show, and I shoot Nikon, so I'm biased toward Nikon. But the show generally has 3 co-hosts. Kemperle is shooting Sony, and Kathleen is shooting Canon. So good combination there. I use a PC. Tim happens to use a PC, but Kathleen uses a Mac. So we got a good combination there. So I'm not going to, even though I'm biased toward Nikon, I'm not going to say that Nikon is, the end all of cameras. Canon and Sony and maybe that's about it. Put out some really good hardware, and you can't go wrong basically with either one. But now that I brought that up, which one do you shoot?
iPhone.
iPhone.
Seriously, my iPhone has become my favorite camera lately.
See, look at this.
Oh,
Can you see that?
oh,
Oh, I'm not the I'm not I don't have focus. There you go. A Galaxy Note. It's
I
like
see
a
it. I see
monster
it.
phone. I can hide behind it. You can't even see me.
Yeah.
No, seriously, what DSLR do you use?
I started off using Canon. Canon started my business. Actually with the Canon Rebel XT,
Okay.
and I slowly built up from there and ended up with the Mark II. And then a few years ago, about 3 years ago, I was just having issues with focus on my Canon constantly. So I tried a friend of mine's Nikon D700, and every image that I took with that camera was crispity crisp. So I switched, And I'm glad I switched because I found Nikon to be a lot more intuitive to me. I'm a lot faster on my Nikon than I ever was on Canon. Like I know the camera very, very well inside and out. It doesn't intimidate me. I love getting images that are in focus. Yeah. And but the only thing is, I do miss Canon's color. Canon actually, and I didn't really notice it until I started doing the workshops, and people, like the attendees, were sending me their images from their model sessions, and I could tell right away who shot Canon and who shot Nikon.
Now, were all of you guys shooting RAW? Or
yes.
Some people, okay.
Yeah, I think for the most part everybody was shooting RAW. But for whatever reason, there's a difference.
Now, so could you get them back to what you liked in post-processing? So maybe it's just the base?
Yeah, it's just
there's always something different even after the post-processing.
Yeah, I think Canon's skins tend to be a little bit warmer, a little bit redder, a little bit more yellow undertones.
Yeah,
and
I've heard that too.
Nikon's skin tends to be bluer, and I find a lot of magenta undertones in the skin that I have to deal with in post.
Have you tried tweaking anything in the camera? And I know RAW is really the raw image.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things is when you shoot RAW, even though it's not embedding it into, it's not baking it into the file, you can make some tweaks in the camera that will carry over in the sidecar file, and like Lightroom would read those, I think, and start from that point.
Well, I just, well, in Lightroom, I've been playing around with the settings at the bottom, the camera portrait, camera neutral, those kinds of things that have, that have helped. But sometimes I can spend way too much time sitting around going through each of those, and I just kind of have to go with it.
Typically, once somebody gets into a brand and they have a set of good lenses, you're really locked into that brand. It's hard to switch because of the cost of switching.
I had almost every Canon lens out there.
Oh, that must have been painful.
It was painful, but surprisingly, Canon's, well, not surprisingly, their resale value on their glass is phenomenal, so I didn't lose too much.
And if you take care of your equipment, that's one thing. The camera bodies will depreciate fairly quickly because they're always coming out with new ones. But like a 70 to 200 2.8 lens, which I love that one, or like an 85 1.4 or something like that, those lenses are costly to begin with, but if you take care of them, they will hold their value pretty good. But if you're just getting into photography, probably the thing to do is go hold both of them. Maybe shoot a little bit, in the store or whatever with a Canon and Nikon, because there's a little bit different feel to them. And you said that the Nikon feels more intuitive to you, and just able to go through it easier. Some people may say that about the Canon or even a Sony, and so it probably is beneficial to go play with both of them before you buy.
Absolutely.
Unless you have a good friend, like if I was your friend and lived right next to you, I would probably get whatever you had because I'd hope you'd let me borrow some of your lenses.
Maybe.
And we don't live anywhere near each other. But I'm just saying, if you have a friend who's into it too and who's willing to share, that may influence you too. But I always feel guilty about loaning anybody my lenses because I'm afraid if they break it, now I've got to say, you owe me $1,500.
Yeah.
And I don't want anybody to be in that spot. So anyway, you mentioned Lightroom. Do you use Lightroom, Photoshop, both, or what's your preference?
I think you need to have both because there are some things, I'm going to say Lightroom, I would say 97% of the time. Yep. Photoshop for that 3% when I need like really special cloning job or I need to extend the canvas and things like that. So mostly Lightroom.
Yeah, the more I learn about you, the more we have a lot of similarities because I am the same way. 90+% of my editing is done in Lightroom. Many times I can do an entire shoot and never have to go into Photoshop. The few things I need to go into Photoshop for are cloning, and if I need to do something with layers. But I typically do everything in Lightroom. I do have a few plugins, some of the Nick software plugins. You ever use any of those? Like there's a black and white one, there's a color one. You just using Lightroom straight up?
Yes. Somebody's just asking if I would consider doing an online Lightroom workshop. I don't need to, because everything that I learned about Lightroom, I learned from, I will post, can I post this link in the
Absolutely.
chat room? Let me get this link and I will show you.
Is it going to be Lightroom, what is it? Lightroom tips? What is it? I can't remember that site all of a sudden. Killer Tips.
No.
Killer Lightroom Tips.
No.
That guy's good too. Matt Klauskowski.
Hold on just a moment.
However you know that. No sound or movement. Somebody's saying, hopefully it's just your internet connection, not anybody else's. Because I'm seeing
Everybody
movement.
hear me?
Yeah, I'm seeing movement and everything else.
All right. Now where did my...
Photography concentrate.
Yeah, that's it.
And while we're waiting for you to do that, somebody says, yep, I shoot all Kelvin. Scott Green. If he's talking about white balance, which I'm not reading the whole thing there, that's the same thing I do. I don't... If I'm indoors in difficult lighting, I will use a gray card. But if I'm outside, I typically just set a Kelvin temperature, and that way I know. That way I know I have consistent white balance throughout.
Yeah. I do. My white balance, I would say in general, I would prefer to do custom white balance when I can. But I'm shooting toddlers that don't stay in the same place that you put them in. So the lighting conditions, and especially if I'm shooting outside and it's a cloudy day, or it's a windy day and the clouds are moving, in and out of the sun and the trees are moving and things like that, it doesn't work for me. It's not. I'm not that fast where I can change the white balance every single second. That the lighting conditions change or that child moves into another area. So when I have control over where my subjects are, then yes, I would absolutely recommend. And I do Kelvin, or I use a gray card, or something. But 9 times out of 10, there's so much other stuff going on at my session, I don't have time.
So what do you
add that to my list of things to worry about?
What do you do in those situations? Just set it on auto?
I do it on auto.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for the most part, it does a really good job. If I'm in a really tricky lighting situation, then yeah, I will change what I need to. But for the most part, yeah, auto.
Lightroom, not Lightroom, the cameras outside do a fairly decent job of auto white balance. I did notice when I was shooting a lot of soccer, a lot of sports, that let's say I'm doing a bang, 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 4 or 5 shots in a row, that they would if you looked at the white balance settings, each one of them was a tad off of the other one. And maybe cameras gotten a little better since when I did that, but they were all just off a little bit. And so I went, at that point, and Scott saying he used 6250, I was using 5600 to 5800 on mine. So, and then that would just give me a base, and then from there I could change it, later on in Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever it was I was editing in. But whatever works for you. White balance is one of those things that it doesn't always have to be perfect. If I did something when I was doing this a while back, I went out and shot my son, and the evening light, the nice warm glow of the sun coming down. I took some shots of him, and then I put a gray card on him and white balanced off the gray card, and all the shots came out with perfect color, except all the nice tone of the evening sun was gone.
Yeah.
Because I white balanced it all out.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you want some of that color cast.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like to embrace the temperature of the light. I didn't really realize this until I went to Nicole Van's workshop in Utah. Yeah. And the light quality and the light temperature and the amount of good light varies by your geographic location drastically. Here in Texas, I tend to use a lot of flare and a lot of backlight. The light is harsher here. We go and, it's bright sun, bright sun, bright sun, bright sun, bright sun, and then all of a sudden the sun's gone here. In Utah, it's sunny all day, and then the sun goes behind the mountains, and then they have this beautiful glow in the valleys, for 2 or 3 hours before sunset, where it's all this perfect light temperature and you can shoot forever in it. So it's going to vary. And I like to embrace sort of that harsh, warm sunlight that we have here in Texas. I like the feel that it adds to my images. The sunset, sort of this gritty glow, yellows and oranges that I really like to incorporate.
Does it ever get hot there in Texas?
No, Never.
Never hot. Yep.
This summer is actually a lot milder than last year. Last year about.
And I mentioned that because you've been a real trooper for us, because your internet has been dying at your house a lot lately, and on top of that, if that's not bad enough, much worse than that, you've lost the air conditioning.
I have.
And right now you have no air conditioning.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I'm sweating. That's why I'm not lifting my arms.
Well, you can't tell. We can't tell that you're sweating. You're doing great. So, like during the summer when it gets really hot, do you limit your outside shooting, or what do you do?
I don't limit it, but I prefer to shoot at sunrise.
Okay.
And, usually my clients go, "You want us to get up when?"
Yeah, because I've heard a lot of people try to get the sunset light.
Yeah.
And which I imagine is much easier to get clients to go to a 6 o'clock shoot in the afternoon than it is a 6 o'clock shoot in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? It's all about give and take. And if you want these gorgeous images that you see on my website, then you're going to have to give a little.
Now, is the 6 o'clock in the morning thing something you do year round, or just in the summer because of the heat?
I could do it year round.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I say 6. I just threw out the number 6.
Yeah.
That's not what you said. What would be a normal time for you?
Well, I recommend. I usually want to get together a few minutes before actual sunrise. So, and that's going to vary by time of year and your geographic location. So, there's actually, if you're on Google Calendar, you can actually put that calendar up on your calendar, and you can go to any date and it will tell you what time the sunrise and sunset is. Right.
I have an app on my phone that is got like all it's I can't remember the name of it all of a sudden, photo tools or something like that, and I have Android. There's another one for your app for your iPhone that gives you all that kind of stuff, the whenever the golden hour is, both in the morning and the afternoon, when the blue hour is, when sunset is, and it's because your phone has GPS in it, it knows your location, because what's in one place may be different than another.
Absolutely.
I did pause in this photo because you do some birth photography. And I love behind the scenes stuff, and not that this one is necessarily behind the scenes, but this is, I like this. This is humorous. It's, I just like this shot. It's you, obviously in I don't know what's going on at that point. Maybe you just peeked over and saw a mirror and took a shot.
Go in a C-section room. Excited.
Yeah. Now, okay. My wife had a C-section, and I could not look at any of that. Are you taking actual photos of the C-section?
Yes, but not of the actual stuff. But I don't know. I found it's invaluable to the mom in particular, because she's sort of kind of out of control in a C-section delivery, and I can capture all those things that her husband might not necessarily think to capture.
Wait, or did you say the husband think to capture?
Yeah,
I don't think we think to capture much.
Exactly, and then mom misses all those things, like the baby, or that particular birth, when they brought the baby over right after he was delivered. They brought him right up to her cheek, and she got to see him and smell him and look at him for the first time. And so she has a picture of that, that she would probably not have had otherwise.
It looks like I mixed in, this is my set of photos, and I mixed in a few of what I thought was workshop photos. So
it's kind of a workshop.
I got them all off your site, and I thought I saw your copyright on them. So sorry if I picked somebody else's photos.
Oh, no, they're all my pictures. If they have my sign on it, if they have my logo on it, they are my images, but they were taken at different times.
How often are you doing a birth photography?
It's really tough to be on call for a birth, especially with me having my children. So I don't really like to do any more than one birth every 6 weeks.
Okay.
And maybe even fewer than that, just because I'm going to call for a birth right now, and I'm on call for another birth right after that, and it gets tiring having to always check your phone. And
that's something I didn't think about as we started talking about this. Is, hey, look at that! I picked one of the same ones you picked, so I picked some of the ones you picked. you know, unlike a lot of your other sessions where you can plan, let's do it a month from, you know, on this date and this time, with the birth shots, you've got to do it at whenever they say. Now I'm wondering if we're actually looking at your photos, so that's why it's.
That's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the ones you picked.
Oh.
Because I'm thinking, wow, I picked a lot of the same ones you picked, but maybe
No, I picked that one and that
we're
one.
looking at only your photos.
Yeah.
But so for our birth photography, you're having to be on call and just go whenever they say.
Yes.
And I would imagine that you can't plan any kind of vacations around that. You basically have to just wait.
Yeah. Oh, we lost audio.
We lost audio?
Oh, there, it's back now.
You lost my audio, or they lost it out there?
I had lost your audio.
Oh, okay. And we're coming close to the hour, so I want to. There will be something we've never done this. This is only your second hangout, so everyone,
Yeah.
you're doing great with it. There is a warning, and I will get it first. That will say, "Are you still here?" And
Okay.
you got like a minute to answer yes.
Oh my gosh!
Or else
Can
it'll
I do
kick you
it?
out. I will tell you when I get it, so you can do it. And since we're coming up on the hour, and I had a list of other questions here, but rather than go through my questions, how about we now open up the chat, because I know I've missed a ton of their questions.
Yeah.
And let's get some of y'all's questions in. Is there anything that you definitely wanted to say before I open up the chat? That maybe
Well, just real quick, somebody, Lady G asked me if I ever cry at births. I have cried at a couple that I can think of offhand, just because they were very, very special circumstances leading up to the actual birth of the baby.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I just sort of kind of go into pro mode, and I'm just there to do a job, and I'm, you know, trying to make sure that I capture everything that I need to capture, and I don't really have time to cry. Usually I cry when I put together the birth slideshow at the end, when I get to see it all together myself and kind of re-experience it. But when I'm there actually at the session, no, I'm more, you know, there to do my job.
Yep. Okay. Are you having trouble with? I don't know what you're saying there.
Natalia said she was having a hard time following the interview. I don't know, maybe if there's a delay or something.
Yeah, I don't know if she's talking about that or the chat. The chat is just chat as we're going on. It's not necessarily an interview. And the interview is more just a chat itself. It's not a specific list of questions. But so I think I've seen this question as we were going through it several times, is what lenses do you use? And I know you have a list on your site of the lenses that you use.
Yep.
But just for those people that are here now, what would be your favorite lens if you had one, or maybe your core set of lenses that you use for a shoot?
See, I don't really have a core set because I have like photography induced ADD. So my favorite lenses vary by the day. So I guess my workhorse would probably be my 50 millimeter. You know, I mean, that's just the one that, you know, where you could pretty much do a whole session with a 50 millimeter lens if you want to do.
Now, is that a 51.8 or a 51.4?
1.4.
1.4, yeah, that's a beautiful lens. And you're on a D700, which is full frame.
Yes.
So that really makes that 50 nice.
I will say for Canon users, I had the 50 1.8, the 1.4, and the 1.2. I saw a huge difference when I went from the 1.8 to the 1.4, and I imagine everybody out there will hate me for this, but I didn't really see that much of a difference in the 1.4 to the 1.2.
Oh, you have the 1.2 also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just
I've kind of heard that too. That, you know, the 85 and the 50 going from the 1.8 to the 1.4, you see a big improvement. That the blur in the background is just even better. Even though I have a 85 1.8 right here, and it does great. You know, the blurs the background great, and your video the color just got way better.
Oh, I do look better.
I don't know what you just did.
I don't know. I'm like a chameleon. I change color.
I don't know. But, you know, moving to the 1.8, from the 1.8 to the 1.4 is, you know, really does make a big difference. There's a big difference in price too, because I think from the 85 1.8 to the 1.4, you're going from like a $300 lens to almost $1,000 lens.
Samantha said, I love my 70-200. I never use my 50. I do love the 70-200 also, but it's hard for me to get those intimate moments between my clients when I have to be so far away. So that's why, in general, I prefer the 50 and the 35mm for more of those lifestyle, those candid shots, those creative angles that I can get with my clients, you know, peeking through chairs or peeking overhead. And then my 70-200 I use for more of like a traditional portrait type image. You know, if I'm doing a headshot for somebody, or if, you know, I'm doing like a standard, everybody standing there looking at the camera, smiling pose. That's when I would pull out the 70-200. But for the fun, creative, funky things, the 50mm or the 35 is what I really tend to lean towards.
And what are you using for your birth photography?
For the birth photography, I usually have two bodies going, and I'll have a prime lens on one body, and then I will always have my 24-70 on the other body with a flash, because I find that I need the versatility, and I need to be able to change quickly when the baby's actually delivered, and change my view. So the 24-70 allows me to do that, and then I can turn the flash on and bounce that as needed. But for all the stuff leading up to it, the labor and things like that, I prefer to use a prime lens, so that would be the 35 or the 50.
Okay. And now, you know, I noticed in a lot of your family shots that they don't seem like actors or you're posing them. There's a lot of free movement, they look natural. How are you getting them to be so natural and in the shots and interact so well?
Well,
I think that was a question somebody asked.
Yeah. I tell them to interact. And it doesn't necessarily have to look good what they're doing. They're not on film. They're not on like video film. But as long as they're in motion and they're moving, eventually natural laughter is going to sneak out of there. And so I snap frequently while I'm telling them to do what I'm telling them to do. Everybody stick your fingers in somebody else's ear, or something stupid. So they're doing something like that, and I'm snapping away the entire time, because eventually they're going to get to the point where they're completely relaxed, they're not thinking about me, and they're just laughing at what they're doing, because I can't believe this lady just asked me to do this. I feel so stupid. Then that nervous laughter comes out, and that laughter is it's the real thing, it's the real emotion, and that's when I tend to get the images that I like the best, when you're capturing that real, actual emotion.
Okay. And so if I miss some of your questions out in chat, you may have to ask them again as it scrolls up. So I'm going to take the last one here. How do you handle photo storage? Do you keep copies of every session on a different drive? And so you're saying that you snap a lot of photos, or you say you take a lot of shots. How many shots are you taking per session?
I would say it varies between 200 to 500.
Okay.
If I have a really mobile toddler, then it could be more than 500.
and at some point, and especially since you're shooting RAW with a D700, you know, storage becomes an issue.
Yeah, I burn a backup copy of all the RAW files. I do have all of my RAW files on a DVD, CD, whatever, DVD, that's stored off-site just in case, heaven forbid.
Can I give you a tip?
What?
The DVDs that you buy to write yourself won't last that long. They will last 3 to 5 years before they start corrupting. So to test it, you know, to see if your discs are starting to corrupt, I would suggest taking like 3 or 5 year old disc, maybe 5 of them, and try and copy every image off of it. If any images don't come off, or it says it's corrupted, then the disc have already started corrupting. That's a way to test it.
That's not my only backup, though. That is my backup for if my house burns down.
Yes.
Then I have a DVD of the RAW file stored off-site. Okay.
And that's a good idea.
Yeah. But once I've edited the JPEGs, then I have an online backup.
Okay. And you know, so we've talked about this before, and one of the options is something like Crash Plan or Backblaze. The deal with that is not everybody can do it, because if you have bandwidth limits, some of the ISPs, your internet service providers, will only allow you to use a certain amount of bandwidth per month. And if you have that, you're kind of handicapped. You don't have much of an issue, much of a choice there. And while I say, DVDs and CDs will not last as long as you think they will, if that's your only way to get an offsite backup, then that's better than nothing. And then you do something locally too, like you said.
Yeah, and then I also I have galleries on Flickr.
Mm-hmm.
I just have private galleries. And if you have a pro membership to Flickr, you can do unlimited storage. And it doesn't require that much bandwidth. I drag and drop a session in there when I finish the JPEG. So I have everything cataloged by year and by session. So I can go back and relocate files if I need to.
And there's several things. You mentioned Flickr. You can also, if you have a pro account on SmugMug, you can do it there too.
Yeah.
Scott Green out there, and I don't want to spend too much time on storage because we did this a number of shows ago. Scott Green is a local professional photographer here in my local area, and I talked to him about buying a Drobo. That is a little bit more expensive of an option, but it is an excellent option if you want to spend that kind of money, and it allows for future growth of storage. Mm-hmm. But the device itself is going to probably cost between $400 and $600 mm-hmm. or more. You can spend even more depending on what kind of device you get, and then you need the hard drives on top of that. Mm-hmm. Okay, enough about storage. Is it possible to do birth photography, or is it possible to do, I guess, birth photography without a flash?
Yes, and in general, I try to do everything without a flash. But there are some cases where if it's pitch black dark, or if, I think in particular in a hospital setting where when the baby's delivered, they have all those bright lights turned on. It's mm-hmm. very difficult to get a good balance between that bright light and then mom's face and dad's face, because they have this light shining down in just this one particular area, which is not in their face. So I have to use a flash at that time, bounced off the ceiling, to sort of help balance those two. I know of some photographers that actually set up a light in the room. I just prefer to have the flash on camera, just because there's always so much stuff in the room anyway as it is. I don't want to have to add a whole bunch more things. But I always ask mom first, and I always meet and talk to mom first about that, if it's okay to use a flash, because it may be distracting to her and she may not want me to, and right. Then I'm thankful for a camera that handles high ISOs very well.
Yeah, the 700 does. Now, you say you bounce it off the ceiling. So if you're bouncing off the ceiling, it doesn't really matter if you have it on the camera, because you're getting all that bounce. So you ever do direct?
No.
Yeah, so if you're bouncing off a ceiling, as long as your ceiling is low enough, and you got to watch the color of the ceiling.
Yeah, you're in a hospital, so it's usually white.
Yeah, which is awesome. A white ceiling, like in your house. Not my house, at least. I got 8 or 9, 10 foot, whatever it is, white ceilings, and that's beautiful. I mean, that bounce it off there, comes right down. It looks very very natural. Okay, so go to the next question. And I know you sell images on a CD to clients. How do you sell products beyond that? So you do your shoot, and then you sell them a CD of all the images, right?
It's a flat rate system. So you pay one rate, and that includes the session and the images on CD.
So I imagine they're not buying prints from you then?
No. Framed prints, maybe. Albums, maybe. Birth announcements and cards and things like that, maybe. But I find if you're priced appropriately, you don't have to worry about upselling. So if you are being compensated for your time appropriately, then anything above, that session is just, a nice little bonus, but it's not, I don't make my living off of that. I make my living off of the experience of the session, and not necessarily albums and other things, trying to earn a dollar here or trying to earn a dollar there. I like it. I like doing albums for clients because I feel like my images belong together in an album, and I think my clients often have big dreams of doing the albums themselves, and they never get done. Mm-hmm. So it is nice. I like it when a client purchases an album from me, because I know it's going to look fantastic, and I know it's going to get done.
Do you ever show them any examples so that, sometimes
Absolutely.
People, when they see one, and by the way, I just got the warning to me, so yours will be coming in the next 10 minutes.
Okay.
Just keep an eye for it. It'll be obvious. My picture will be replaced with that. Are you still here? And do you recommend where to print images? So, okay, you sell them a CD. Do you give them any, like, hey, here's a good spot to go and get the
Yes.
prints? Or
I
is that
recommend. I have a local printer here, a professional printer here in Austin that I recommend.
okay?
And for online, MPix Pro. I mean,
Okay.
MPix.com.
Okay. All right. Um, let's see. I'm sure I missed some other questions. Do you have a size limit of what the
No,
clients can print? So you're giving them the, is it a J, is it ultimately a JPEG
it's
or is it
JPEG,
okay.
full res JPEG.
Okay, here's one. I think Jennifer's asked this several times that I've missed it. Who are the pros you look up to and follow that inspire you?
Well, Jinky, of course.
Jinky.
Um, I, Rob and Lauren at Photography Concentrate. I actually, their work is so natural and so real and simple yet creative. I could look at their images all day long. I love their work. Um, I love Bobby and Mike just because they're fun and playful and fantastic.
Bobby and Mike, I'm not familiar with them.
Oh, they're fantastic. The husband and wife.
Are they on Facebook or a website or?
Bobbi and Mike.
Okay, I have to look them up.
Yeah, you'll be amazed. Their images are fantastic, and their personalities are wonderful to match. My husband and I actually went to their workshop last April. We were kind of exploring the idea of possibly shooting weddings as a team, he and I.
Your husband and you were going to shoot weddings? Now, is he into photography also?
No. So,
was he going to just be your assistant?
We're not shooting weddings together. But it was a great experience because it's fun to watch how they work together, and they're great people.
Okay. All right. So is your husband involved in your business?
Indirectly, he used to be a school teacher, and before I started my business, we were the four of us living off of a school teacher's salary.
Ooh,
it was
wow.
before I had my daughter, Amory, and I did have my two sons, which was really tough. So then my business kind of took off, and I was finding that I was like mom by day and photographer all night, and I wasn't sleeping ever. So we decided jointly that he would quit his job and stay home with the kids. So we were homeschooling for the past 3 years, and that's been my husband's job in the family, homeschooling and taking care of the kids.
Yeah, well, that's very important. That is a supportive role that allows you to do what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's very important. Very good. So we need to cut this off at some point. Maybe we can take one or two more questions. Anything I missed? I'm sure there's a lot I missed tonight, with it only being me, and I'm really missing Tim and Kathleen. The one thing Tim does a great job of that I'm just not able to do tonight at all is keep show notes. Tim would have typed down the Bobby and Mike that you said, the MPix that you said, all that stuff would have been, he would have done that.
Well, it's in the chat room. Can it be saved?
Yeah, I can grab some of that.
Yeah.
But Tim does a great job of capturing all that. Kathleen helps with the interview, and we're missing her. Are you completely self-taught? So that's one of the questions that's out there.
I mean, I guess.
Well, yeah, because I guess what you're going to say is that you maybe you took some workshops, or you looked at videos online, or that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've read a lot of books, and I've had a lot of trial and error, and I went to several workshops, and I was a part of a fantastic group of women and men photographers on Flickr very early on when I had first gotten interested in this, and we were all sort of learning together and helping each other out and answering each other's questions. So I'm self-taught with the help of thousands of people.
Yeah. Now, since you're not doing workshops now, do you know of anybody who's doing ones now that you would recommend? That you say, hey, I'm not doing them now, but I recommend you look at this person.
Oh, hold on, I'm still here.
You finally got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's hard for me to say one over the other. Like, it depends on what you're looking for. I would recommend different workshops for different needs. So like, for example, like if you if you wanted to learn how to use off-camera flash, then I would say Nicole Van's workshop.
Okay.
If you were wanting to learn about how to set up stylized or concept photo shoots, then I would say Jinky's workshop. If you wanted to know about shooting weddings and engagement photos, then Bobby and Mike. So, I mean, it just depends on what you're looking for.
Okay, so all three of them do workshops?
Yes.
Okay.
Newborn posing, Laura Brett.
So this isn't a question, it's a statement. You're my favorite photographer, Michelle. I hope you have a workshop again soon.
Oh, hi, Misty Marie. Thank you.
And Missy had a question earlier that I is about to scroll off the screen, so let me ask it before it scrolls off. How do you make the jump to the price point for sessions and CD combo? I would love to run my business that way. And I imagine what she's saying, and Missy, correct me if I'm wrong, is that right now you're having to sell, you're doing a session fee and then selling prints, rather than just here is my price for everything. Is that right?
Yes. I started off session fee and selling prints.
Yep.
And eventually I got to the point where I was kind of done with that, and so I did session fee and I was selling digital collections. Like you could get 5 images on CD, 10 images on CD, all the images on CD, kind of something like that. I was just trying to simplify things. I was just trying to make it, I was trying to give my clients what they wanted, and then also make sure that I was putting food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had kind of toyed with the idea of just doing a one flat rate, because I felt like a PinkleToes session is an experience. You don't go into the session just to get one particular image. Like, we take so many different kinds of images and we capture so many different things about your family that you're not going in there just to get one thing to hang on your fireplace. So, and I felt like all of the images belong together and that they're not independent of one another. So, I really just wanted to simplify it even further. And so after going to Bobby and Mike's workshop and just kind of hearing sort of this affirmation from them, I decided to go ahead and move to just the flat rate, just to make it easier on everybody. Okay. That's not great for everyone. That doesn't work for everybody's style. It doesn't work for every community, every geographic location. I mean, it happens to work here in Austin because everybody is pretty tech savvy and knows what to do with digital files. So, and it also, I mean, I had a reputation built, so it's like, I don't know, I could count on, people could trust me that I'm going to deliver on what I promised.
So I know that the number of photos you shoot every time change, but you said sometimes as much as 500. What is the typical quantity you're actually putting on a CD and giving them?
That's going to vary depending on how many people are involved in the session.
Okay.
So anywhere between, I would say, 30 to 60 images.
Right, because I think, I've heard sometimes, and there's some groups that I'm in on Facebook, that they say, you came and shot me, I want all the images that you took. And I know some photographers, especially the ones that are just starting off, they have to deal with telling the parent, no, you're only going to get these ones. You're not going to see my unedited photos, and I'm not going to show you everything. Do you ever run into things like that where somebody says, Michelle, I know you took 500 photos, why is there only 60 here?
Yeah, I have. And the best way to nip that in the bud is to make that clear before they book the session, just to make it clear. And so I have a little blurb in my price brochure that explains, yes, we're going to be shooting lots of images at the session. That's to make sure that I get a good variety of expressions. I get the right expression. It gives me the freedom to experiment. I'm not perfect.
No, nobody is.
Every shot that I take isn't absolutely, should be hung up in a giant canvas on the wall. But the shots that I do take that are amazing and have to be hung up in a giant canvas on the wall are usually in a series of, 5 or 6 different things that I've tried. And then I finally found the right thing that's working. Mm-hmm. So I have to have the freedom to explore and do that without feeling like I have to, show my dirty laundry too. So
yeah, I try
to do a good job of explaining to my clients that we're going to take a lot of pictures, but trust me, you don't want all of these.
And that's probably the important thing to do, is have that conversation up front so that there's no surprises on the back end. Because I think people who are, the couple of misconceptions that people have who are not into photography. One, they look at your website and say, look at all these beautiful photos she takes. Everything she takes comes out this way. I want to see them all.
No.
And maybe you're the client, or maybe you're another photographer just getting started, and you go out and you take the shots and come back and say, good God, it took 200 shots and only 20 of them are really good. Maybe that's a little bit low ratio. Depends on what you're shooting. Maybe that is not a bad ratio. But if you're thinking that your mentor, the person you're looking up to, is getting 100% good shots, that's just not happening.
No.
And they're doing some. And then as the client, or as a photographer, you only want to put out your good work.
Yeah.
You're not going to show everybody everything.
Well, I don't, but I also don't want to set up this idea that you can just go out there and just spray and pray.
Absolutely not.
You do have to know enough to know how to get what you want to get. But there's in the kind of people that I work with, and the type of sessions that I do, and the kind of images that I create, I do have to try a bunch of different things, and not everything is going to be perfect every single time. And if I was going out there and just photographing, one bride standing there on in a field, and that's all I was doing, then my ratio of getting perfect images is probably going to be a lot better.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when I'm with a family with a toddler who has a runny nose and doesn't want to be there, and the family cat keeps coming in and out of my frame, and all these things that can happen.
Well, yeah, it's important, because I know, and I have a tendency to do this when I got started, my mom did this, is that you take a bad image, so the way to get a good image is just take a bunch of bad ones away a lot faster.
Right, yeah.
and then you go back and you look at them and you go, wow, all I did was take a lot more bad ones.
Yeah.
So the thing, right, you have to, even if you know what you're doing, you're going to have some that are out of focus. Even with your Nikon, you're going to have something out of focus, or the exposure is going to be wrong, or maybe the composition wasn't what you wanted, but you're honing it in.
Yeah.
You're getting there, and you know what you're doing, and you're looking for that moment. So the other thing that I think that clients sometimes don't realize is, hey, I can go to Walgreens or Walmart or Costco and print that 4x6 or 5x7 for 37 cents. So if you're giving me 60 of these, why is this thing costing me more than $30? Do you ever run into that issue, or do you have to walk away from some clients who on price?
Yeah, of course. And that's everybody's prerogative. They're not. I think the most important thing for me to communicate about selling my session or selling the experience is that it is an experience. It is not just about an 8x10 or a 5x7. It is about all of the time and effort that goes into getting to know you as a family, making sure that I capture you as a family, and the craft, the time that it takes in actual setting up the session and seeing the light and seeing the shot before it happens, and then going home and working in Lightroom to get the images to their best quality possible. So anybody that I have to really sit there and explain all of this to probably is a waste of my breath, because they're not, they don't understand what I do. So I'm not really in the business of trying to convince people why they should, hire a professional photographer versus going, to Walmart or whatever. I'm in the business of why you should hire me as opposed to any other photographer in my area.
All right, how about one more question, because I know Scott asked this in all caps, so he must really want it asked. Do you get the cold shoulder from photogs that push prints? So other photographers who are pushing prints, and they say you're killing the industry because you're selling CDs.
Not here in Austin. It's such a tech community. If you just sold prints, I think it would be a tough business for you.
Now, you mentioned maybe a lot of clients don't get them printed, but I imagine a lot of them do, but they probably also want to put them on Facebook and do that kind of stuff. Do you allow that? Is that something you allow? Okay.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? I mean, that's, yeah. I want people to show my images off.
And I think that's what a lot of people want to do. A lot of people are getting more used to, you do want to have the prints in your house, but you also want to be able to share the prints, electronically.
Absolutely.
Photos electronically. Yep.
All right. And I'm curious, real quick.
Yes.
Rainbow mud. What is this idea that this person had that everybody's talking about how wonderful that is.
Rainbow Mud. Did Rainbow Mud have an idea? And Scott says he's considered the black sheep here in Georgia. That's because you live out in Athens, where people haven't come up to the 20th century yet, Scott.
Oh,
great idea, Wayne.
Prince album. Oh, yeah. And that's something that I had considered, but it's too expensive.
Well, I'm sorry. What's the idea?
The idea to package it all together, where you get the CD of the images and the album and the session all for one rate. And I had thought about that, but the cost for my client goes up significantly in order to make it worth my while. So I mean, I have to kind of break it down to what I can do where it's not so bad for them.
Here's something Kathleen told me, and I'm sure I'm not breaking any new ground because I'm sure everybody's already thought of this before, but just in case you hadn't, not you, Michelle, but somebody listening, what Kathleen does is she has her standard packages, which is whatever they are. And Kathleen is our normal co-host who's not here tonight. She has her normal packages that she sells, and then she has this one package that's outside the range of all the other packages. Maybe it's, not like twice as much as the next highest, but a good bit more. And she knows that most of the time no one will order that.
Absolutely.
But what has happened, she has found, is that a few times a year somebody will buy that one.
Yeah.
And whenever somebody buys that one, it's like, woo. And the thinking is, if I didn't at least offer this, then nobody would have got it.
Absolutely.
But now look what I just did. I sold this big package.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I encourage everybody to do that. It's you start if you're offering collections, your bottom line collection would be like the minimum amount of money that you would need to earn to make the session worth your while. Then the middle of the road collection, the one that most everybody would probably lean towards, would be your ideal profit margin, and then you would have that one collection where if somebody bought that, cool, that's great, that's wonderful. For me, doing the flat rate, I don't have to really focus on that. It is what it is. So I know how much I'm going to earn each month, and I know that I'll be able to feed my kids. Thank you very much, everybody, for helping me feed my children.
All right, I know I said one last question, but this is the last question, I promise.
Okay.
And then we'll let you go. Do you include some copy in your emails about how you should only upload the ones with your logo to Facebook?
I mention it, but I understand that not everybody reads that. So It's not like I'm going to go attack somebody on Facebook for uploading an image that doesn't have my watermark.
Yeah.
I might go discreetly tag PinkleToes Photography in it.
That's a good idea. So let's say they put it up there and they didn't put your logo there. You can go and tag it back to your page.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle. Well, thank you so much for doing this. And I don't know what the temperature there is, but with no air conditioning, it's got to be hot. And your internet having trouble. And I guess once I switched servers that we're sending to, it actually worked good.
Yeah, it was good.
We haven't had any more trouble. Thank you again for coming out. And sorry that Kathleen and Tim weren't here. Tim hopefully will be back next week. Kathleen will be a couple more weeks. If you like the show and maybe you've missed some of it, maybe sometimes people have bandwidth issues, because we are streaming. If you have DSL or something like that, you maybe had some issues. But the recorded version, which will be out in a few days, will be available on iTunes or Stitcher or our website, any of those places you want. You can subscribe to the show at any of those places. You can follow us on Twitter, on our Facebook page, or join our Facebook group. And I even did a little Pinterest thing, although I haven't been very active there. I do have a little Pinterest thing there. The show is free. We don't do this for money. What we do have, if you're on the site and you see below chat, please don't click on it yet, because once you click on it, it'll kick you from the site. But below the chat window is a Google ad, and when you click on that, it'll take you off the site, and the show gets a little bit of credit. There's also some Amazon ads and some Adorama ads, and if you're going to buy anything from those sites and you click on those links, the show gets a little bit of credit. And what we do with that, I fund all the hardware myself just because I'm a geek and like playing with it. But what we do with any of the funds the show makes is we do giveaways. We gave away Lightroom, a couple copies of Lightroom, and giving away some other things. We do giveaways back to the listeners. And that's what we want to continue to do, because we know that if you're getting into photography, it's a very expensive hobby, from the lenses to the hardware to the computer, the editing software. All that is expensive, and we do this show for fun, have great guests like Michele on so you can learn from them, and then want to give back something in that way with the gifts. So thank you everybody for coming out to chat. We'll be back next week with, what's her name, Stacy Jensen, who has wrote several articles for our website. So, and she'll be doing a giveaway next week. So be sure to be here next week for that, and we'll see you then. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.